Hello and welcome, everybody. Today's podcast um, is con- is about a great musician that lives here in Halifax, Nova Scotia. Welcome to Marcela Mores podcast. It's our third episode when we're live now. We had to start today a little bit earlier because the man is busy and has to run, but we're very happy to have him here. His name is Dilshan Weerasinghe, and he's a Haligonian musician that holds a Master of Arts in Musicology, recently achieved at the University of Dalhousie. He's got a lot of interest in. He's a very versatile musician. He's got a lot of interest in jazz, swing, and specifically in the academic aspect. He researches on the role of that popular music, especially in hip hop, plays in conversation of racial politics, identity, and social justice. Dilshan is very well known here in the city, and he's been performing in jazz and R&B groups in Halifax and across Nova Scotia as well. And he does teaching as well, recording and writing. Please welcome in today's episode. Welcome, Dilshan. How you doing, my man?
Good, man. How you doing?
I'm doing great. I'm really happy that you accepted to be here with me today. I know I talked to you about the podcast that I was starting like a few months ago, and it takes time and courage to do this, as well as it's a learning curve. So I'm still
Sure.
like getting used to it and feeling more comfortable. I've been getting some great feedback from friends, and that's how we learn. So yeah, let me
Mm.
just tag you. There you go, Dilshan Weerasinghe. Right on, man. So you have well, as I mentioned before, and we're going to be talking about that. I find you have a really interesting and rich style in your playing. Uh, can you tell us a little bit about yourself and also your musical influences, just to start hot here?
um, well, I guess in terms of guitar playing, it just becomes a mix of everything. I guess I love a lot of rock musicians. Like my favorite guitarist ever was Jimi Hendrix, which I guess is like a cliche, but I mean like that was like one of the
Oh, it
reasons why I
counts.
wanted to start playing guitar. And then like all these other rockers, like John Frusciante was one of my favorite guitarists still. I loved John Mayer, all of the pop stuff, and then I loved a lot of the modern jazz guitarists like Pat Metheny and Julian Lage. And I loved, also guitar or music that doesn't have a lot of guitar in it, like hip hop. And I love listening to R&B as well, and a lot of soul music, and even heavier punk rock. I loved heavy metal and hardcore punk for years, still do. So everything kind of becomes a mix of all of these different things, and I tend to not feel content as a musician if I feel like I'm kind of sticking to the one thing. Like if I try to do, purely jazz, like capital J jazz guitar, I don't tend to do that. I don't think I do that well, and I don't think that I don't feel satisfied when I feel like it doesn't sound like me. It feels like I'm not being honest when I'm playing if I try to kind of put on any individual hat. So yeah, I just kind of like a lot of different things, and then they all just hopefully come out in something that doesn't sound too bad.
I can see normally when you perform that I've had the opportunity to watch you perform, and even luckier I have the opportunity to have you perform with me. And so you have a really nice warm sound. Where does that come from?
I think that came from starting to get really into jazz. I think when I first started, because I loved the Stratocaster, the guitar that I use, because I was such a big fan of like Frusciante and John Mayer and Hendrix and all of these guys, right? And it also felt like a really versatile instrument for what I wanted to do when I first started playing guitar. So that guitar is the first guitar I ever owned, and it's still the guitar that I use predominantly. And so when I kind of got into jazz, my intro to jazz was initially through jazz piano. And then I started trying to experiment with jazz guitar. And I was told by some teachers that to try to get a warmer jazz sound, you have to roll the tone back. And, they gave me some guidance on like how to produce a warm jazz tone. And so when I kind of, throughout university, when I was, trying to get deeper and deeper into jazz, that was sort of the tone and the style I kind of tried to pursue. And so even then, when I sort of stopped pursuing that, capital J jazz, I guess that kind of sound and like the inkling towards that warmer sound, it never really left. So yeah, that's where that comes from, I think.
Yeah, and this is when you were doing your bachelor in music, right?
Yes, yeah.
You did it at Dal as well, the house.
Yep.
Excellent. No, that's wonderful, man. How this is a very broad question, but how did you meet music? What was the moment in your life? How life brought music to you? What was your path growing up? What was the theme? Because potentially that has some that may have some influences in your current view of not sticking to a particular style of either jazz music or music in general. Please feed us with that.
Yeah, I guess I had just been playing as long as I could remember. I remember piano was the first thing growing up, and as soon as like that was the first instrument that I learned how to play. My brother was taking lessons before me, and it was like, as I can't remember a time where I wasn't playing, where I wasn't doing that. And so that originally started to progress into I picked up violin as well. My parents really wanted me to give that a shot, but I really wanted to play guitar. And so my older brother played guitar, and he was taking guitar lessons at the time at the Folklore Center in Halifax, back when they had guitar lessons there. And so I remember he used to kind of leave his guitar around the house, and I used to think like guitars were like the coolest thing ever. And like when he was going for lessons, like I'd want to come along just for like this fleeting moment where like just before the stairs that would go up into the lesson center, you could see into like their sales room, the sales floor, and you could see the guitars. And just as that little glimpse of like looking at a guitar, I thought they looked so good. My brother had them lying around the house, and I remember one day when he had the guitar just laying down on the floor, and I went over and I like plucked a string, and it just making that sound, I remember thinking it was the coolest thing in the world. And so then I just started to, my brother, I remember, showed me a few chords, and he initially gave me like one of his old guitars, like this old nylon string guitar that I didn't really take too much, but like whatever, like I tried to kind of figure out how to do my own things, but really I wanted to play electric guitar. And so I ended up getting the Fender Stratocaster that I use now. And then I was just listening to everything, rock music, I think was the first thing that I fell in love with, like, punk rock, pop punk, this alternative music, because this is like, we're like in the early 2000s right now. So that was like the music that me and my friends growing up, we were all listening to, like these alternative pop punk songs, which were heavily
teenagers back then, eh?
Well, this was like, I would have been like 8 or 9,
Okay, not even.
And so this is when we started, like me and my friends, we started, listening to music, and we were like collecting CDs. And that's, I think rock music and that kind of alternative music was kind of the first thing where I was like, this is super, super cool. And then that grew into just like all different styles of music, reggae, pop, funk. My mom and dad loved Bob Marley, and they loved, early like Jackson 5 and Michael Jackson, Ray Charles. They had all of these records. And so I got really into those as well. And then, around junior high, I started getting like really into older rock music, like classic rock. And then I kind of discovered Jimi Hendrix and stuff like that. And then hip hop, we were kind of like the Kanye generation. And so a lot of that was going on as well. So we're all listening to this early Kanye as well, or not like early into like the prime of his career, pre-crazy Kanye. And so there was all of that, and we were just taking in all of this stuff. And, you know, I was just obsessed with the guitar. Even before I played guitar, like I used to draw them in my notebooks all the time. And so when I got a guitar when I was 13, I just put everything into it, you know, tried to play as many things as I could, everything. And I just kept taking in as much music as possible from as many different styles.
Sweet. Now then, that's and then you move into studying the Bachelor of music,
Yeah, yeah.
right?
So I started. So yeah. First I started off at Dal. It was originally a Bachelor of Science, but
Yeah, I
so
think you
Dal.
mentioned that.
Yeah, yeah,
Was it
and
biology or what were you taking
yeah,
from?
exactly. So Dal has a program. I don't know if they still have it, but they used to, where you could do a combined honors in science and music. And since I was little, like I always wanted to work with animals. And so I thought biology would be a cool route to go down there. So I always drifted more towards sort of the environmental conservation, you know, zoology, animal biology kind of aspects of bio. And so started off there, but I also had the music there as well. So started kind of pursuing that, practicing, started taking lessons at the university. And then that started off with like this combined honors to eventually realizing that, you know, I didn't want to do the biology stuff and I really wanted to do the music stuff. And I was kind of like denying that for years, that this is what I really wanted to do. And then just fully pursued that.
Good for you, man. Good for you. That takes uh that takes a lot, I'll say, because you know we get somewhat stuck in some, you know, some modes, and then it's harder to find. It's happy for you, and you're I think you're doing good. How was so that's yeah, that's how it happened. So you
Mm.
was it kind of like in second year biology, or you just realized that?
So I think I knew, like, even before I started the degree, I was just in denial of it because I was just kind of scared of switching full time into it. But I knew, like, all I was thinking about was music, and I didn't want to be in bio, and I was just denying that. Um, Consistently. And so it wasn't like a complete switch. It was like a very, very gradual step by step. So that combined honors turned into a double major. And eventually that double major turned into with music as a first major. And then by the end of my last year, I wanted to do a music honors. And at the time at Dal, I'm not sure if it's still this way, you can't do an honors with a double major. So then the bio just got dropped, and I finished with the music honors. So it was a very sort of gradual switch over.
Interesting. Yeah, I didn't even know that was possible. I mean, that kind of openness in the program. That's really interesting. And now in the middle of that transition, and you kind of transition, and also from you know, probably like late teenager into an out, you know, a young adult. Um, how was how do you find that music, and you know, with along with the education, how you find that kind of started shaping your mind, your perception about music, and your life? How do you think that improved you as a person, as a musician? How was if you can comment a little bit of that process, because I find it really interesting.
Sure. If I understand your question correctly, for me at first, when I was started playing guitar, I mean, logging pretty heavy hours on it, but I never really viewed anything as practicing, because it was just, I enjoyed playing, and it was the hours and hours would go by, and then it was only to around university where I think I was just around the term of like practicing guitar was never something I really thought of guitar as. I would just play for hours and hours and hours, and then around university, you know, I kind of told myself I really wanted to buckle down and get into this. So the biggest thing I would say with playing an instrument in general, I found, is the discipline to do it well, and I think is a really important skill where you develop setting minor goals for yourself to accomplish something, sticking to a plan, trying to stick to a plan, setting up that plan, and figuring out what you need to do to accomplish that. So I would say one of the biggest things that I think playing an instrument, playing music, you can come away with in terms of a tangible or skill is the discipline that you do get from learning an instrument. You also just learn, how to be, I guess, more open and honest with yourself. I found for me, playing music, especially guitar, just became a great release, a great way to express. And I noticed the difference in my sense of self and in my emotional well-being if I don't play. So it's a great tool to kind of not just express those, but kind of explore those things and understand, what's going on with what you're feeling, how does it, what we're really doing inside of ourselves. I think music is a great tool to sort of explore those as well.
Nice. And in that case, I guess to be more specific with my question, sorry, the academic program kind of helped you to practice that discipline that you wanted, kind of to shape you more into being more focused.
Yeah, definitely. They gave me, the instructors I had were really great about, showing me the tools that I needed and the steps I needed to take to get where I needed to be. So that was something that I found really useful throughout the music undergrad and giving me kind of like the inspiration and like the right that I reacted well to their teaching style, I guess, of really pushing myself to get to where I needed to be. Yeah.
Awesome. Is there any professor that kind of at the house that kind of mark your life that you want to?
Oh, there's a lot. So I studied.
I don't want to put anybody in a tough situation, but just.
Oh, there's so many great people. So I took lessons with Scott McMillan for years, for 5 years. And, he was someone that I hope, I stay as excited about music as he is to this day. He was just an inspiration, incredible musician. I think some of my favorite memories of live music are going to see him play with various different groups, quartets, the big band that he runs. Chris Mitchell as well was a huge influence on me as a musician, and also just from the academic perspective, Jacqueline Warwick, who was my honors and master's supervisor as well, there was incredible, absolute inspiration. I think one of my reasons of like why I wanted to do an honors, which led to the master's in musicology and that whole, the route that I'm going down now is, taking one of Jacqueline's classes, Dr. Warwick's classes, and being like, this is really cool. This is a really interesting way of looking at music. So yeah, Scott, Chris Mitchell, Jacqueline Warwick, Steve Bauer, awesome prof, the rock and roll prof, Tim Crofts, such a big influence on me in terms of like his vast knowledge of so many different parts of music. Jeff Torbert, I think, for the guitar department and the times that I was there, I think so many of us like just wanted to be like just Jeff Torbert, just play like him, be like him. Jeff Torbert was a huge inspiration for us when he was teaching at Dallas. Well, but I know I'm forgetting probably so many people, but those are some of the first names that come to mind.
Awesome. Yeah, no, that definitely set some addition of role models for you to follow. It's good that it's all compacted into a program. So big time. But you didn't stop there with academia. You continue further with a Master's of Art in Musicology. Love to hear about that, man. I had the opportunity to attend. Actually, I was very, very, very happy and very interested. So please tell us a little bit about that.
Yeah. So first, during in my last year, I wanted to do an honors thesis, and I wanted Dr. Warwick to supervise it. And so I did. She thought, the theme I wanted to do was cool. I was going to be it was going to be about hip hop. I wrote about Tupac and Lauryn Hill, and it was kind of a comparison of Black masculinity and femininity in music and in R&B and hip hop and rap music, how they kind of portrayed themselves, how this kind of alters or confirms our perception, how they kind of took advantage or didn't take advantage of certain stereotypes, messages they were trying to get out, stuff like that. And I really, really liked that work, and I found it was really rewarding. It was towards a cause that I was interested in, working towards issues around social identity and social justice, and also I get to really still be working with all this music that I love. So after my last year, Dr. Warwick recommended the master's program, and just dove in, didn't really know fully what to expect, and gave it a shot. And we decided with Jacqueline Warwick that my master's thesis was going to be on Kendrick Lamar, on To Pimp a Butterfly, his third record. And then again, it was intense, but got so much out of it, learned so much. It was really the sense of like, I felt like I was doing something that felt really meaningful for me, because it still felt like it was working towards a cause and a series of causes that I wanted to be working towards and wanted to be helping with, and using kind of this music that I really loved to do that. And so, yeah, went through the masters and wrote about Kendrick Lamar's To Pimp a Butterfly, and how conversations around race, specifically blackness and black identity, racial politics, American racial politics, the experience of poverty, and the role that hip hop and jazz, and how he kind of works with these different Black musical languages on this record, and how he kind of uses these different elements as in addition to dance, and in addition to various theatrical elements and live performances, to kind of craft a particular message around race, identity, blackness, racial politics in America.
Wow, that's a lot to take in, man. That's amazing. And so what? So how did he use the jazz component into his music and his narrative?
So, I mean, in that album in particular, I mean, to answer that, we need to go back a little bit, because so jazz and hip hop has a long-standing relationship, and with we need to go back to, now we're talking like early 90s, late 80s jazz rap. So groups like Tribe, Guru, De La Soul, who kind of are some of the bigger names, the Roots, names when you think of jazz rap. And so the idea of jazz and rap music, when they're kind of not just using a jazz sample as part of the beat, but kind of foregrounding the sound and the culture, the timbre. So what's happening, what these artists are trying to do when you're using jazz in that context, is they're trying to kind of sort of separate themselves from other mainstream hip hop and mainstream rap music. Groups like Tribe are a great example of this. The Roots are a great example of this, because of the connotations we have attached to jazz sonically. It's sort of, it's a synonymity with a high class respectability. It's synonymity with a high level Black artistry as a Black musical art form. So these are things that we sonically associate with jazz. It's instrumentation, jazz harmony, and melody. And so what jazz rappers are doing when they're using this is they're kind of using that as a way of sort of elevating hip hop, and a way of saying, okay, this isn't just a street rap. Like we've got our noses in the air a little bit. Like, okay, we're separating the wheat from the chaff here, right? It's a sort of way of kind of presenting themselves as something a bit more elevated. So what Kendrick Lamar has done, and he kind of in interviews speaks about how he sort of organically drifts towards a sound, and particularly not just in terms of the instrumentation he chooses, the beats he chooses, but also in terms of how he approaches flow, drifting naturally towards a jazz style. And the reason for that, well, firstly, he says that he comes to it naturally, but specifically on Tip of a Butterfly, what he's doing is he's crafting these sort of different musical personae throughout the album that are representative of sort of these different archetypal images of Blackness, and these sort of archetypal images that we'll see throughout our conversations of racial politics. So, for example, he uses Uncle Sam as a representation of the American dream, specifically the American dream gone wrong, and as a representation of capitalism. He uses these different Black stereotypes and presents these, and all of this is done with a musical language of jazz in the context of hip hop. So what that means is he's kind of presenting an entire conversation around racial politics at a national, even some songs at a global level. And he's doing this with a musical language and constructing all of these personae with a musical language that's synonymous with Black artistry and high class respectability, kind of elevating the meaning and the connotations we have with hip hop music, and again grounding this within hip hop culture and all the narratives that it already speaks to in terms of the experience of poverty, experience in America, youth culture and all of these.
Hmm. It's really interesting because they're taking well, a very famous and, as you said, high class, like appealed, very appealing, like genre of music that that actually was really enriched and developed by Black Americans,
Hmm, hmm.
right? Like where the presence of African Americans are very it's very conspicuous, right? It's really yeah, it made the difference, right? With, I mean, we're not going to dive into that because that's a whole other podcast, but it's
Hmm.
really interesting because it's bringing the what I see. And I was thinking also when you were saying that, it's bringing that identity that was hardly worked with jazz musicians that were black, that are black, and how they elevated themselves to gain like a really important social status, and and professional status, and how he grabbed that into his music, right? To
Hmm.
help to support the narrative of hip hop. Am I
Yeah.
making sense?
Yeah, and he's kind of constructing these different, personalities, these personae of different sort of black archetypes, these archetypes of the black experience, and he's constructing these using, this musical language that's synonymous with again high class respectability, with high level black artistry, so that he's kind of having this whole conversation and portraying the black experience in the context of hip hop, with this high level of respectability and elegance and high class synonymity.
Nice. Well, definitely. Well, I remember you invited me. I mean, I think I actually asked you, hey, can I come
Mm.
to your thesis?
Hmm.
And I remember I quite enjoyed. Yeah, I think
Hmm.
you did great. And I think you haven't stopped yet. You may be engaging into a PhD now.
Yep. So starting a PhD this September.
Wow. Well, like, are you going to perform like a similar line of research that you have been doing?
It's going to be on hip hop. As to whether it's going to be on a specific artist, I don't think so. But as for what I can tell right now, it's going to be on hip hop. It's going to be around similar issues around race, racial politics, identity, the experience of poverty, various different marginalized identities in the context of hip hop or R&B, soul, neo soul, kind of under that umbrella of hip hop music and culture. Perhaps some jazz as well, some new jazz. But as to what it's going to be on specifically, I'm not sure yet,
Yeah.
but it's going to be something under that umbrella. So definitely not on Kendrick Lamar again, but definitely going to be within the realms of hip hop music and the similar themes. Yeah.
That's amazing because I really like that because you tapped in as a musician, well, academic now, a master's degree. You're tapping into also the social science, but with
Hmm.
the perspective of music and how music will have an impact in our society. I think that's really important. That's the start of my podcast, is relating music to science. So I think that's really present. And yeah, man, thanks for doing that.
Absolutely. I'm just trying to do my best here.
Now,
Trying to
you
do what I
said
can.
that switching gears a little bit, I mean, unless you want to add more to that, you can come back at any time. You do a lot, you do enjoy, and you do a lot of teaching. If, how do you how do you engage with that? How do you compare like the teaching of music versus the performing of the music? Is there any way to compare that? I mean, do you show different colors of your personality with one doing one either teaching or performing? How does that work? Because I know the teaching is very present in you too.
Yeah, I mean, to a certain extent, teaching is a sort of performance as well in its own right. Kind of, there's a sort of identity you have to don in front of students, in front of a student in a private lesson that isn't, perhaps is not your normal day-to-day. Like, you have to kind of pretend to be something when you're in front of a group of students. Though it is pretending to be a certain version of yourself, it's still a kind of role you have to perform. So there's that kind of overlap. And I would say, I think playing music as as opposed to teaching music. I think playing it really gives you interesting insight into the things that you're teaching, that you can teach. I think, playing the things, I remember when I was doing my master's, playing along to and transcribing all of these Kendrick Lamar beats. That was a really useful tool for me to find insight into particular, like the musical mechanisms as to what's going on here. Why would he be using this? What's this actually doing? Why is this voice this way? What's the root of this? Where is this coming from musically? Why would he be wanting to draw from this particular style at this time? What's he trying to say with this? And so, like, I find that playing music and playing the music you're studying, or playing the music you're going to be teaching, it gives you a particular insight into what you're doing that I don't think I would be able to get from just teaching. That being said, there's a lot, I think teaching music also gives me a different perspective on performing music. So when I pick up my instrument to play something, or I approach and, get hired for a gig or whatever it might be, there's a different level and different type of insight into the music as to, what's going, how to, where particular styles are coming from. There's a different level of understanding, I think, with the music that when I'm playing, that I do get from having to teach it and having to, study it academically.
Well, that's amazing. I think also I like what you said about the when you were in the process of doing your masters, how you were picking apart, like breaking down the music and studying where this particular moment of the song, why did he use that? And I think that is some elements that you would that would be good resources for you to teach, right? Because you have
Yeah.
a further understanding. They say based on that example, you have a further understanding to try to explain something to a specific intention, musical intention to a student.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think a lot of the things, a lot of those conclusions that you draw, I think I was able to get to them through playing the music. Yeah.
That's amazing, man. The other thing I wanted to ask you around is, I've seen you like playing, playing around in town, and I've seen you. I've got the opportunity to know you as a person, right? And I see your sense. You have a big sense of comradeship with our local community, and it's amazing to see you as a young artist and how you can connect with your community every time you're playing, and how the people respond to you, how the people go and see you playing, and go on and support your performance. I think that's as a musician and performer, that's a very humbling and important thing um, to achieve. And also it could be a big struggle, for the emerging musician, or in general, like for many musicians, to try to engage with their networks of friends, or peers, or the audience as well, that that you will get that such response. I just wanted to know if you have any thoughts on about this you wanted to share.
Yeah, I mean, I think we've got a great music community here in Halifax. I think I feel really lucky to be a part of it. Honestly, going back to your first question about musical influences, I would say, like, right now, the people who inspire me to play most are, I'm lucky to say, are friends of mine, or people that I know in the music community. Like some of my favorite guitarists, that really inspire me to play, are people are like Scott McMillan, Jordy Haley, Jeff Torbert, Kenneth Pasher, Sam Wilson, Paul Baker, all these folks that I see around the city of Halifax that are great friends of mine, great teachers in their own right. I mean, some of them I just know as friends, not as, and I've never studied with them, but we've got such a great community here in Halifax, and great musical resources to draw on. So I feel, really lucky and inspired to be a part of all of that.
That's amazing, man. Also, I remember I didn't get to know you back then. It was really funny. We quickly met. I think it was like 3 years ago, 3 or 4 years ago, at the um, music conservatory of the Maritimes here in Halifax. I was supporting Carlos Mora, an amazing Cuban saxophone player. He had a performance there, and you were playing, and we just it was really funny because we put a few of the Cuban tunes, and he would add the twist of jazz into it. And I remember me like showing you briefly like just the chord progression, and that was our first interaction, and how you just soak that in without maybe you may have heard those songs before, but at that very spot you just went with it, and was really was really good. So that's just a little note on how we met, and it went fantastic. We've been in touch things, and also performing together, which I'll get a little bit into that. But you mentioned also that a few years ago you used to play with a band with some of your friends, some swing and blues for the local dancers in the community. How was that experience?
It was great. That was actually, I think, one of my first experiences of gigging in Halifax, was playing in like blues rock bands and playing for like blues dancing and swing dancing as part from the Halifax dance community. It was a lot
It's
of
kind of
fun. Yeah.
it's kind of like engaging with an audience that is not only listening to your music but dancing to it. I think is very
Yeah,
important.
and it kind of makes you have to approach music differently, which I found. So one of my friends who I was playing with in the band, so he's a dancer and quite active in the dance community, and he was kind of guiding us through like what things the dancers need in terms of music. And it's a lot of sometimes it doesn't translate well. You can't have a song, a jazz tune that goes on for 12 minutes with 4 solos when you're dancing with someone, because you're not dancing with them for 12. It has to be a length of like one song that someone would dance to. So it really makes you sort of pick songs differently and approach things and play things differently than I was used to. So it was a really interesting experience. It was also just a lot of fun. The energy of playing for people dancing is a lot of fun.
I think that helps a lot, and it does happen a lot with Cuban music when when I perform with my band Planache, which I'm more than happy that you have been with us several times to see the local community of dancers or salsa dancers, how they engage. And I don't know if you had this experience, but in my case, it was also a demanding audience, because they wanted certain styles of Latin music. They wanted the son, but they wanted sometimes a little bit of cha-cha or Dominican bachata. So it was quite an interaction where you learn more from your audience, for the dancers, because they tell you what they want, and it's a good positive challenge, because you want to overcome that. So I end up doing like going back home and doing some homework and some song or styles proposals to my bandmates. Okay, they're asking more bachata, so the Dominican bachata. So we have to put together or adapt some songs into bachata. I think that's a really it's a really interesting, and yeah, you learn a lot from that.
Yeah, definitely. And again, I think, yeah, you seem to have a similar experience, and it makes you approach music differently. You have to kind of pick songs and approach them differently than you would be if it was for someone that was just listening to a song, as opposed to someone who's going to be dancing to the song for a particular time period. Makes you pick different styles to mix things up throughout the night. Yeah, it's definitely an interesting experience playing for dancers.
That's good. Well, yeah, we played together at the 2 years ago at the Jazz Fest here in Halifax, and it was fantastic. And as well as in a few gigs in Halifax. At the former, unfortunately, the former Stainer's bar, right, which we'll miss. But I think there are another pieces, as everything happens, taking over. And recently in January this year, I had this great idea of this. I'm not sure if it's great, but it's brave. Definitely was to kind of bring a little bit of a mixture to your influence and of in jazz to Celtic music. When I was we were called to play at the Halifax Celtic Music Festival, and yeah, I just found that you. I wasn't sure at the beginning how you were going to react, but you seem to be pretty cool. And that also shows a little bit of your versatility, that you don't mind changing the music a little bit. And I hope you had a great experience.
Yeah, I mean, I think Celtic music is something that I've never really delved deeply into. So I was just happy to learn a little bit about it. And it was a lot of fun.
Yeah, no, and in my case, I'm bringing more the Spanish Celtic aspect of that, which is
Yeah, it
slightly
was really
different from the
cool.
Scottish. And yeah, and I'm so pumped. Thank you, man, for being part of that. The project that will hopefully will pick up something in the down the road in the summer. Everything gets back to or closer to back to what it was. And yeah, with a Che Druida, yeah, I have some hope. Right on, man. It's the so what are the next plans in your like your current work right now, and where can we find you like perform um like next?
Yeah, so I've got a show coming up right now with on April 24th with an R&B group that I play with. That's at the Derby, which is it's currently sold out, but we're going to add a waiting list to that so in the event that anything changes. So maybe that would be something perhaps to watch for if you want to listen to some neo soul, some soul jazz, some R&B. It'll be a lot of fun. Superfluids playing that night as well as Lindsay Meisner. So that's going to be a great show. I'm also part of a weekly jazz night on Thursdays at Hopier, which is always a lot of fun. So yeah, feel free to check that out. And in terms of other projects, I'm always writing, both, trying to become a better writer, composing, working on a few projects there, gearing myself up for this PhD, and so starting, doing a lot of more academic writing and reading as well. And yeah, got a couple balls in the air.
Nice. So you work when you say writing, you mentioned you mean both the academic writing of papers and both writing composing new music.
That's right. Yeah.
That's amazing, man. Well, thank you very much, my friend, for being here today. Is there anything else that you want to add?
Not that I can think of.
Yeah, well, maybe in the future we can we'll love to have you again. Please, everybody, listen, Halifax and the world, follow this man, follow this young man that is very sincere with his music, and you just have to go listen to him to see what he has to say when he's playing. I'm very happy to be your friend, man, and I wish you all the best, and we'll be in touch.
All right, man. Sounds good.
Thank you so much for joining us today here, and yeah, I will we'll be in touch.
Absolutely. Yeah. Thanks for having me.
Thank you, my man. All right, have a good one.
Yeah. See ya. Cheers.
All right, everybody, that was everything for today. Please check out Dilshan's music. You can find it on Facebook. Um, he's got a really nice network of musicians, and I'm very happy to have him here just to bring um, more perspective of how music influences our community. Thank you so much for joining us today, and please, this is my early episodes. It's a learning curve. I hope to be bringing more guests at least once a week. I believe I'm cooking to start to add another live stream in the week. I will let you know in the social media channels very shortly. And please subscribe below. Give us some likes and some shares. Subscribe below in my YouTube channel, Marcela Mores. And this is it for today. Thank you so much.